Chuck Todd and the cast of Meet the Press concern trolled Bernie Sanders over him, quote, alienating billionaires with his campaign rhetoric.
I mean, going back to this idea of you don't take money from billionaires, I think the challenge with the Democrats is that there's plenty of billionaires who are actually aligned with this whole proposal of what America should look like.
Yeah, I don't
think it
feels like he's alienating them.
Right, and I don't think that's actually effective because it creates there's not an American that wakes up every single morning that doesn't say, I'm going to get up in the morning so that I someday either can be rich or my kid could be rich. So this whole misalignment that the Democrats have against the aspiration, it doesn't feel productive.
Can I just tell you,
no, he did. Right.
This is what people forget about. I think Democrats blow this sometimes with, particularly voters of color, is not coming across as aspirational for personal wealth. Cory Booker and Tom Steyer have been the only two people on this debate stage, Michael Steele, who sort of go, wait a minute, people want to make money.
Right.
Don't say they don't.
And when you think of billionaires in America, at least when I think of billionaires in America, I think of Bill Gates, I think of Jeff Bezos, I think of people who have made a huge.
Yeah, but don't forget Donald Trump has given billionaires a bad name.
But they've made a fortune making our lives better.
Right, but the problem is
I wouldn't go that far.
Donald Trump has given billionaires a really bad name, so I don't know.
No, well, I would actually say that it came off with Mitt Romney, right? People were trying to say that Mitt Romney was a problem because he was rich. That wasn't the problem. He just didn't connect with people. And I think that what we have to be very careful is that creating unnecessary class war when we have plenty of people who actually do contribute.
Class warfare inside a primary is usually a problem. Yeah. Anyway, and Michael.
They have no idea what they're talking about. None whatsoever. As if it's Bernie who started the class war. No, he's responding to the class war that's been declared for decades by the uber wealthy on working people. I mean, look at their framing on this. As if it's not the case that rich people, billionaires, corporations have bought our government and rigged the rules in their favor. That's exactly what they've done. Remember that Princeton study that came out a few years back, I believe in 2013 or 2014, which found that the U.S. effectively functions as an oligarchy? If you're in that top 1%, your policy preferences almost always get implemented. If you're in the bottom 50%, yours basically never get implemented. So that's the thing that people are objecting to. People are objecting to the fact that the top 1% now pay an effectively lower tax rate than middle-class families. That's something we learned recently, and this is a change that came with Trump's 2017 tax bill. Now, the richest people in the country pay an effective lower tax rate than regular people. This is what people are objecting to. People are objecting to the wealthy and corporations rigging the rules and making life harder for them and helping themselves. You know, we have a system where it's not, and here's the main point, guys. They think like, oh, why are they complaining? We already live in a meritocracy, but we don't live in a meritocracy. A meritocracy means the harder you work, the further you go. As I've explained on this show before, some of the hardest working people in the country are still living at or below the poverty line. One of the hardest working people I ever met worked 2 or 3 jobs all the time and was still living at or below the poverty line. So don't tell me that you're that big of a simpleton where you don't understand that the way the system works is not that the harder you work, the further you go. It's clearly not that. It's obviously not that. We don't even have a living wage, so you could work full-time and not make enough money to survive. I mean, that's insane. That's crazy. You can work full-time and not make enough money to survive. Meanwhile, you got some people, they're not fully grasping just how much $1 billion really is. And they're not grasping, but there's only about 600 billionaires in the United States. When you add up the wealth of just the Walton family, the Walmart, and they didn't build Walmart. They're the offspring of the dude who built Walmart. And 4 people have more wealth than the bottom 50% of the country combined. On what planet does that make sense, guys? On what planet is that okay? That you could be the failed sons and the failed daughters of somebody who built Walmart, and you are just handed immense power and control in society. Why is it that Republicans understand that, hey, you got to work for what you get. You shouldn't just have freebies handed out to you. They understand that in the context of, food stamps and people getting food to survive. They act like that's unjust and illegitimate, but they're totally fine with hand-me-downs to billionaires' kids where they don't have to work another day in their lives and they can keep rigging the system in their favor. I mean, it's infuriating. By the way, notice what Chuck Todd said there. He said Cory Booker and Tom Steyer are the only people who really spoke about, hey, we need to be aspirational and people want to make money. And how are Tom Steyer and Cory Booker doing? Chuck Todd. He's like, this is a mistake. Democrats make a lot. They're not aspirational. Well, we have two candidates that are, Cory Booker and Tom Steyer. And they're doing terribly. Perhaps because your political analysis is pure trash and you have no idea what you're talking about. The funny thing is there's actually nobody who's against aspirational politics or against people working their way up the ladder running in the Democratic primary. The idea that Bernie's against that. No. Bernie just wants a more fair, equal, just system. And what Bernie understands that these idiots don't is that your human value is not the same as your economic value. Chuck Todd and everybody else in this conversation, in their mind, they've conflated, your economic value is the same as your human value. So obviously if you've earned $5 billion, you earned it. You earned it. But no, that's not the reality. It's not the case that the person who works full time and doesn't make enough money to survive, that's all they're worth. That's it. Their economic value is the beginning and the end of the discussion. I mean, what a grim way to view human life. What Bernie understands is, no. Your human value is different from your economic value. And he wants to have a system that more accurately links those two things together. So, in other words, you should always make a living wage if you're working. That's Bernie's idea. And the people at the top end should pay enough in taxes where you could still be rich, but it's not preposterously rich. It's not wealthy to the point where you can just buy the system and rig the rules. That's what Bernie's in favor of. He understands there's a fundamental difference between your economic value and your human value. It really is wild that, at this late date, look at what these pundits, look at their perception of the world. Look at their perception of how society works. They really think what do you mean the billionaires, they just worked harder and they're better than us. They really think it's that simple. Oh, yeah, they just worked harder and they're better than us. It's not like any of them were, exploiting cheap labor and riding a wave to the top based off the work of others. No. It's not like they rigged the rules to give themselves an advantage when it comes to tax law, when it comes to labor laws, etc. No. They just work harder than us and they're better people than us. So why would you go after them? All Bernie wants is a more fair, more just, more equitable, more rational, more logical system that gives everybody an equal shot. What Chuck Todd and all the idiots on the panel are doing, without even realizing it, is they're defending a 100-yard dash where some people start the race at the 80-yard line and you're back there at the 0-yard line and you got to start running and somehow beat this person. It's not a fair race. It's not a fair fight. And that's not equal opportunity. That's not a meritocracy. But then again, this is why Chuck Todd is hired for that position. He's hired for that position particularly because he will rationalize the status quo and think that's intelligent and think that's, poignant political commentary. He will rationalize the status quo. That's what you're watching him do right there. That's why, Chuck Todd has risen through the ranks and now he's the host of Meet the Press, even though he's not bright. That's why Wolf Blitzer is on CNN and gets 1,000 hours a day, is because Wolf Blitzer will rationalize the status quo. They did not see Bernie's movement coming in 2016. They did not see Occupy Wall Street coming back in the day. And now they're still not grasping with the reality that Bernie Sanders is the front runner, and there's a good reason why he's a front runner, that people are done with the broken politics, the corrupt politics, the new robber baron era, which we're definitely living in. People have had it, and Chuck Todd is totally oblivious to it.